Welcome to everyone to a new video. Today I bring you two inexplicable experiences like many others. One of them happened in the state of Kansas. More precisely in a small town near the city of Pittsburgh. And the last one in a police station in Albany, which is a city located in Shackelford County in the state of Texas. I look forward to your comments at the end of the video, to know what they think about these two stories. Now yes, let's go with the stories of today. My name is Adeline, and what happened to me happened in a small town near Pittsburgh, Kansas. On Christmas night, we were with my family visiting my grandparents and uncles. The midnight celebration had already passed, and we were all relaxed chatting a bit. In that town I have a best friend, and we had planned to meet her at midnight to take a walk through the town. But actually the idea was not just to go for a walk. We wanted to feel a little more adrenaline. We had the need to experience something new, more than just walking in the dark. So we decided to go to the local cemetery that is located on the outskirts of town, on the side of State Highway K-171. Approximately 300 meters from the intersection with S-240th Street and N-90th Street. The cemetery is in the middle of the field, and if you live in the area it is not very difficult to find it. The point is that with my friend we had already walked enough, and we were almost 100 meters from reaching said cemetery. I confess that we were a little scared. Beyond the fact that at that moment, neither she nor I said anything. The silence that was in the area, and as we got closer to the cemetery, was something that gave you chills. So, to lighten the atmosphere a bit and break that silence, I told my friend about a video I had seen at noon. We laughed a little, but at that moment everything changed. While I was telling my friend about this video, I see running past and quite fast, almost like in the blink of an eye, a transparent white silhouette in feminine form. It was clearly noticeable that she had some kind of white dress or cloth that was waving in the wind. I just managed to see her when we had about 50 meters to go to reach the cemetery, thanks to the dim light that shone from one of the lanterns that are located inside the cemetery. I could not appreciate with much clarity neither the arms nor the feet of this feminine silhouette, but I did notice that in the head it seemed to have a kind of white veil. The fabric seemed to be one of those thin transparent white fabrics, like those of some silk curtains, but I could not see much more than that. Because it happened so fast, that instantly the figure seemed to vanish among the trees that are on one side of the cemetery. And even more so since the lighting in the place is very bad. I swear I couldn't believe what I had seen. I didn't really understand what it had been. And I doubted that perhaps it was all a product of my imagination. But yes, I was sure that I saw something that night. At that time I remember that we had no distractions. There were no cars, there was no fog, and there was not even a wind to raise the dust. The truth is that I didn't want to scare my friend, so I never even stopped for a second to tell her something. Just at that moment it was when I heard a moan or some kind of growl, and when I turned my head to see my friend, I see that she was with her mouth wide open, and the eyes even more. So I stopped short and asked her, "Karen, you just saw the same thing that I saw?" And staring at me, she answered me by nodding her head in a low voice and totally scared. "Yes." I asked her what exactly she saw, and she described to me in a precise and very specific way exactly the same thing that I saw. Now I had no doubts, and I realized that what I saw had not been the product of my imagination. I automatically took her arm and told her, "We are leaving here now." I assure you that at that moment fear invaded me. I felt totally unprotected, not only because of what we had just seen. The fact that it was the middle of the night, in total darkness, in complete silence, and that there was absolutely no one around. It made me feel that we were alone and without anyone to ask for help if something happened to us. So we turned around, and at a brisk pace while I told my friend that it was best to leave as soon as possible. Since we did not know what we had seen, or if it could cause us any harm, we left there and returned to the town. When we arrived at my grandparents' house, we stayed for a while analyzing the situation. And after a couple of hours and without reaching any specific conclusion, my friend decided that it was too late, and she went home. The next day, I told my uncles what happened to us. So that's when my uncle smiled at me and said, "Seriously? Could you see the bride?" The way he asked me the question, it was as if he had also seen what we saw. That surprised me a bit and I said yes, so I asked him how he knew what we saw with my friend. He replied telling me that the legend of the bride is well known in the town. Many have seen her run outside the cemetery. There is even a story about her in a book of myths and legends in the town library. I was totally shocked. But do you know why? If they told me this, I would not have believed it. It seemed like the typical story of the classic weeping woman or the lady in white, which is always heard and told everywhere. The most curious thing about all of this is that this time we ended up with my friend, seeing something similar with our own eyes. My name is David, and this story that I am going to tell you happened on October 31st, 2016. At that time, I was working as an assistant in the Shackelford County Sheriff's Office, which is located at 309 South 2nd Street, in Albany, Texas. It was around 11 at night, and my partner Sanchez and 3 other assistants were on night watch. There were 5 of us in total, 3 women and 2 men. We were all filling out some reports. I was almost finishing my shift, and I was completing the last service forms for the day. When I finished, I went to chat for a while with Sanchez. And it was at that moment that his gaze fixed right on the front door. His expression of surprise intrigued me, and that's when I turned my head to see what he was observing. I see that through the main entrance, a girl was entering very slowly, who I calculate would be about 9 or 10 years old. This girl, while she was walking towards us, was taking very, very slow steps, as I told you. And her arms were well attached to the side of her body, with her gaze fixed to the front, and her hair long and totally black. From what I remember, she was wearing a white dress with little red flowers and little black shoes. I assure you that at that moment, the atmosphere became tense and quite cold. It could also be said that this girl gave us a very strange feeling. I don't know why, but at least that's how I felt. When she was close to me, I could observe her more carefully. And the truth is that she was a normal girl. So I asked her what she was doing there, and where she was from. But her gaze was still fixed, looking straight ahead, without looking at me and without answering anything. "Baby?" she asked again. My partner, "Where are your parents?" But she did not get any answer either. With Sanchez, we looked at each other a little uncomfortable due to the strange situation. While my partner insisted and asked her again what her name was, she did need something, or if she was lost. But this girl didn't even look at her. She was still standing there and motionless. It was then, and I don't know why, that it occurred to me to ask her, like wanting to improvise something. Trick or treat? I remembered that we were in the middle of Halloween, and some kids, although it is not very common here, like to celebrate it. At that moment it was when she nodded yes with his head, and without looking at us or speaking a single word, she stretched out his right arm and waved a candy. But for me, bad luck. Neither my partner nor I had anything. So it occurred to me to accompany her just 4 meters away, to the office where my other 3 colleagues were filing reports. When I knocked on the door and entered the office with the girl, my 3 companions who were there were startled, because this girl really was transmitting something strange to us, something that really caught my attention. It is that he was not even wearing any costume. But what caused me the most doubts or concern was that he did not flinch before the cry of one of the assistants who were there. He did nothing, he had no expression, and that was very strange, given that any child with that scream he would have been scared, minimally a little. My companions asked me who that girl was, if she was my daughter or my niece. I immediately answered that no, that I did not know who she was, that she had appeared alone through the entrance of the police station. I asked them if they had any sweets or candies, or at least some gum, something to give her, because it seemed that she didn't want to leave the place. One of the assistants, a little scared, greeted her and told her, "Hello, beautiful. What's your name? Where are you from?" But she didn't get an answer. My partner looked at me out of the corner of her eye and went back to her place, gave her some candies that she had on her desk, and asked me to please take her with me, that she did not like the situation at all. I turned around and told the girl to come with me, that we were going in search of her parents. We went to the front door, and without leaving the building I told her to wait for me a second, that I was going to pick up the car keys. When I turned around to take my desk keys and tell Sanchez that I was leaving, I felt a chill run down my back. I looked back at the front door and the girl was no longer there. She had disappeared. I asked my colleague, "Sanchez, and the girl?" And he tells me, "I don't know, he was just next to you." Then he tells me, "Maybe he went out and you didn't realize. Why don't you go outside and see where he went?" I remember that I told him, "No. It's impossible for it to have come out. I would have realized it." Apart from that, I turned around for only 2 seconds. I swear we looked everywhere for her, inside and outside, under the desks. But surprisingly, this girl had disappeared. There was not a soul on the street, not even a car she could have gotten into. There was no one waiting for her either. We went back and quite confused. I told Sanchez, "How strange is all this? It is as if he had disappeared. He is nowhere." He looked down for a second and he confessed to me that when he saw her, he felt a chill that ran through his entire body, and that he had not liked that sensation at all. But the reality is that all of us who were at the police station that night felt something strange, which is very difficult to explain. I always wondered, and on many occasions we talked about it with Sanchez. What would be what we lived that night? Because that girl did not speak to us and walked as if embarrassed, with very, very slow steps, with her gaze lost in nothing. And what was the reason of having that feeling of discomfort in front of this girl? And the strangest thing of all was how she could disappear in seconds and without leaving a trace. It should be noted that the town is not very large and we had never seen this girl. Perhaps, and only perhaps, I think that the soul in pain visited us of a poor creature who had her life cut short. God knows why, and he only went to ask for what fills every child with love and happiness: some simple candies. Thank you for reaching the end of this video. I send you all a big hug.